Good morning. Hello, everyone. All right. Cool. Alrighty. So, video working, audio working, everything seems to be okay. Cool. Let me just bring in the chat. All right. Hey, comics legend. Hey, Pablo. How's it going? Good timing. Marianne. Mike. How's everyone going? Cool. So comments from YouTube are working just fine. Hey, Sebastian. Jerry, welcome. So last stream we talked a little bit about this, the new features in ZBrush and things like that, and we made like a weird creature, just something to showcase the features, and just give you some ideas on how I block stuff. But in this stream we're gonna do something different. Hey Alex, good to have you here as well. A couple of extra milers here. That's great. Awesome. So what I'm gonna do, instead of going on and rework on that creature that we did last time, or continue working on that creature, is to start something new. But I'm hoping to show you or showcase a workflow that I do for like quick sketches. So meaning that even if it's gonna be just a concept, I go through this process like sketching it in ZBrush. I'm gonna show you how to block it out really quickly, and then poly paint it and all of that, and hopefully get to even fiber mesh. So I'm gonna use the theme of the month, although I'm a little bit behind. What's the date today? 23rd. Yeah, so a little bit behind from St. Patrick's Day on the 17th of March. So behind that, but I'm gonna try to create some kind of like leprechaun face type of thing, just to be in line with this month's theme. And yeah, so that's what I'm gonna be doing. Feel free to put any questions in the chat. I'll have it right next to me, so if you have any questions, put it there. And anything else that I can think of. There's a couple of updates that I could give you later on, but not just right now. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Cool. So what I have here is just a primitive sphere. I'm gonna dynamesh it with a resolution of 96, and that's about right. I mean, let's just test. This is something that I do to test the resolution that I'm working on. I mean, I can sort of judge by the size of the polygons, but what I'm interested in doing is, or the way that I test the resolution in terms of whether or not it's going to work what I'm doing, is holding the shift key just to smooth things out. So I like to just go ahead and do just a quick dump standard brush like that on one side, maybe on this side without symmetry, and then if I hold the shift key and smooth it out, if it's smooth fast enough and it gives me a good result when I'm smoothing, then that's a good resolution to work with for me. If it doesn't, then let's say if I do this, let's just go for 280, right? If I do this and I go ahead and smooth it, you'll see that these lines are kind of like really hard to smooth out at this point, so that is going to become like really blobby resolution. So that's how I judge whether or not the size of the polygons of the fiber mesh resolution of the dynamesh resolution are going to work for me or not for this blocking stage. So even something like 72, I think it will be fine. So again, just a quick test and see how easy it is to smooth these lines for the blocking. You can also hold the shift key and right click or go to your draw palette. Holding shift, you see that all of these things shift a little bit just when I press shift, and I just would like to turn down the intensity a little bit so that I can control more the smoothing with my tablet. So I can go softly or press really hard, but this is what I'm interested in, that if I have a line like this, that I can get rid of it very easily. All right, so I'm gonna activate, actually, let's go ahead and mirror and well, just to go back to that sort of sphere, and activate symmetry. Turn off perspective just for a second. Yep, all right, so that's quick setup. This was just a quick intro into how I judge the resolution of Dynamesh, because I've been getting a few questions about that, like when to use Dynamesh or how to use Dynamesh and all of that. And even though for some of you that might be already quite familiar with the software, it's and you might think it's a trivial question, pretty straightforward. Sometimes it's good to know those little things. All right, so the way that I'm gonna block out the face, and hopefully we can do more, but I'm just gonna concentrate on the face, going through the whole process. The way that I'm gonna block out the face is with deformers. So I'm gonna bring in a Gizmo 3D, and I'm gonna use a soft deformer. So the soft deformer is essentially a lattice that allows you to manipulate points, so like that. And because it's soft in a way, so when you move things like these points, the effect is gonna be very smooth, very gradual, and this is great to sort of block some shapes like this, basically. So I'm gonna activate symmetry just so that I can do this. Again, let me just double check. Okay, so 1, 2. There we go. I'll explain in a second what I'm doing. I'm just trying to figure out whether or not what I'm doing is going to work. All right, cool. So these cones right here allow you to change the type of symmetry. So you can do mirror symmetry, or you can do parallel symmetry. So if you hover over this at the bottom, let me just bring in the Epic Pen. I haven't used it for a while. Here we go. So this thing, if you hover over this, pay attention to this area. You have two like parallels. So up to this point, this one would be 1, and this point would be 2. So this is parallel, and this one is mirror. And it works the same for other ones, right? So if I hover this to this cone, oh, it's around here. But anyway, it says 1 parallel and 2 mirror, meaning that if I set it to 1, it's going to be parallel, meaning if I move this point towards the left, the other side will also move to the left. And if I do mirror, then it's going to be like the usual symmetry that you might be used to, right? So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Maybe add a couple more points. So just increasing the amount of points here. And I'm gonna go for a very, I don't know how to describe it, but with big cheeks. So I'm gonna take these 4 points, move them around, maybe rotate things a little bit. You can scale things as well. For the face, I'm gonna push this towards the back. And all of this can be done as well with the move brush. I'm just showing you a different kind of like technique. And this one is really good if you want to maintain a very smooth, very clean surface. And the way that you select the points, by the way, is if you want to select more than one, is to hold the control key, right, like this, and then hold the alt key to invert the mask, basically masking everything out except these points, and then you can just move them like this. But of course, you can also hover over these and then just push them like that. You see that the lattice is kind of like very messy now, but the effect is quite subtle and quite smooth. That's it. Click accept. Again, you can do this with the move brush, and it might be easier for you. Just wanted to give you a kind of like a different approach to it. And what I want to do is make sure that actually the forehead is a little bit bigger than this. So maybe let's just go with the move brush. Make sure symmetry is enabled, and I'm going to hold the Alt key just to move these polygons along their normals. And again, use the smooth brush just to smooth things out. And just as a reference point, let's add a neck to this guy. So just gonna go to the bottom, hold Control. It's gonna be a cartoonish sort of character. So the neck will be something like that. Invert the mask, bring in the gizmo, push that down. Maybe a very short neck. Clear the mask and redynamesh. And this is why the thing that I showed you at the beginning, the tip that I gave you at the beginning, in terms of testing the dynamesh resolution is really important, because when you get to this point with all of these very sketchy, blocky things, I just go like that. And I can very easily remove that. Maybe redynamesh again. All right. So now I'm just going to do some quick markings to sort of explore a little bit of the, the proportions. So the eyes would be kind of like here in the middle, right? Of maybe even lower, just to have like a very big forehead. Maybe the nose would be tiny, something like that. Maybe just very, very tiny. That's actually cool. Like very small features. So very, a lot of visual skin. So this will be the eyebrows. On all of these things that I'm doing is not particularly doing anything in terms of sculpting. It's just a quick marks like this, just to sort of have like an idea of what this would look like. I'm going to turn off perspective. All right, something like that, and maybe, like I said, big cheeks and the face. It's looking a little bit angry at the moment, but hopefully we'll fix that. All right, so again, these are just quick markings. It's not going to be necessarily like I'm not going to use this to sculpt and refine. This is just like purely to test things out, right? So I'm going to place the eyes, because the eyes are going to be a big feature, and the eyes would give me a very good point of reference to place the rest of the features of the face. I can go ahead and append an image, a sphere, and then duplicate it and all of that. But ZBrush, since I think 2021, maybe, or 2020, maybe 2020, it comes with this really handy macro, which is append eyes. If you click on it, it's just gonna give you a couple of spheres with a black color. Let's go into solo mode like this, and with the toy plastic applied to it. So it's pretty good. So I'm gonna take that. Select my move brush, have symmetry enable, and then just move that into place. Let's go ahead and move things a tiny bit. So I'm going to select the move brush and the AQ curve. So it looks a little bit like an alien right now, especially because of the black color. But again, it's a good starting point to be able to place the rest of the features. So I can judge things like maybe, you know, maybe they are too far apart. I wanna or too big, right? Maybe I wanna scale it down a tiny bit and bring them closer together. Like that. So that, yeah, so it's more of a more interesting, I think. All right, but having those eyes there, then I can start sort of like judge the, you know, the shape of the head. Maybe flatten this forehead a little bit more. Things like that. Maybe define the chin a little bit more and push back the mouth. So like I said, those were just markings to be able to place this a little bit. Doesn't look like much right now, but hopefully it will turn into something. So this is kind of like the point in time where you go like, oh, this is not gonna be good. But you keep working at it and just give it some time, it might turn into something. I'm gonna refine this, like the jawline, but make sure that I keep those chubby cheeks. And I'm gonna append or maybe use the same mesh just to, again, block out the ears, and because that's gonna be also a very prominent feature as well. So I can just duplicate that, turn off symmetry, smooth that on the side. And I have the same resolution, but, you know, should be okay. Maybe smaller. Redynamesh. So this is just going to be a quick mesh to do the ear. All right, so I'm going to use the move brush. Nothing fancy, just a, you know, leprechaun ear for the blocking. All right, I'm just going to mirror and weld this. So now I have two, and I can sort of arrange this a little bit better. And so this guy doesn't look sort of as alien as it's looking right now. What I'll do is I'm gonna append a let's append a cone for the nose. I'm gonna work with two sort of like, in terms of the shape language, with like very rounded faces and the chubby cheeks that are very rounded. Same with the eyes, but with corners as well, like with this sort of pointy triangular area. So I'm gonna replicate that inside the face, just with the nose. And I'm gonna use also, just to block this thing, a deformer, and I'm gonna show you something cool as well. So for the nose, I use this cone, and I'm gonna use the skew. This is something that I don't use as often, but for this type of thing, it's pretty handy. So I can use the Z axis and just push this back, like so, right? And you can either use, you can flip it around and use the same thing. In this case, I prefer to use it like that. But anyway, the whole point is just to move one of the points of this of this piece. Right, and again, dynamesh this. That's too high, the resolution, a bit something like that. Okay, symmetry, smooth things out a little bit. And let's just refine the bottom area. And again, I'm gonna make this quite pointy. Hey, Luis Enrique. Pablo, any chance I get an invite for? No, I don't have invites for foundation. I've been getting so many people asking me about that. I don't have any. I mean, I think you have to sell something before you have invites. So I haven't even sold the first one, so don't have invites. Sorry. Can you show the project primitive with a portion of the sculpt if possible? Yeah, I'll see if I can find somewhere to use it as an example. Yeah, IQ curve is really good. I prefer that than the normal effect when I'm blocking, because I get these, very pointy areas. It just helps me define things. It's kind of like in my head is it's kind of like using the dumb standard brush as well as the move brush in a way. I know that might not make much sense, but that's how I see it. I'm gonna use the inflate brush to add some volume here for the nostrils, and again, damp standard brush to define these areas a little bit. All right, cool. Let's go back to the face. Maybe increase the resolution a tiny bit so that I can define the eyes a little bit more. So I'm gonna use the damp standard brush. So you have, this is the standard effect. We might need more resolution than that. So this is the standard effect. If I hold the Alt key, obviously it sort of inverts. So this is what I do to block in the eyelids for this guy. I can show you a couple of ways. I think this one would be just fine, but you can just define the eyes like so, like I have done already, sort of, and then hold the Alt key, just do this to refine the eyelids, and then just fill in the areas with the clay brush. So what I'll do is hold the Alt key first. As I said, I sort of already created the gap in here. So just holding the Alt key to push this up. Right? Let's just redynamesh, because we're pulling things quite a bit. And the same thing for the bottom. So Alt. Right? So we have some sort of eyes there, or eyelids that kind of work. I'm going to block in the mouth area. All right. So I'm going to give you another trick here for the mouth. Just then, when you're blocking these type of things, if you want to be, have more control over the expression, and and make sure that that you can have like lips basically, not just a line going in like this. You can create a mouth bag. So this is a very quick way to do that. But before I do that, let me just finish with the eyes. I just want to get a quick idea. In fact, I'm just going to do something very quickly. Again, this is something, part of my personal workflow, might not be useful for you. But at this stage, just because I'm sort of sketching it as I go and figuring out the shape, I like to just think about, if I'm going to add sort of like hair, just go with the clay brush or the clay builder brush and figuring out, maybe even with color, how these might look with a bit of, with a beard. That will also change the silhouette, right? The volume. That's what I'm trying to understand. Maybe some pointy eyebrows. Oh, not like that. Right. Yeah, so hopefully you get the idea, but I can just go back in time. In fact, let's do a Shift S somewhere that you guys can also see that, just as a reference. Maybe somewhere here at the bottom. All right. So what I was gonna say is, if you take the move brush, we can also use the masking brushes to sort of tweak these eyelids. So I can mask, let's say, an area like so, which would be the lower eyelid, right? Invert that mask, bring in the gizmo, center to the unmasked areas. We can actually reset the rotation, and I can just hold the Alt key to reposition the pivot, right? So I don't affect what I have there. And actually, let's just rotate that a little bit. Okay, and let's do the same thing, but for with the top eyelid. I want to make it look a little bit more angry. Angry, or I don't know, or tired maybe. So the same thing, center, or the Alt key, and I can press this down, or maybe just rotate it actually. Push this up. Oh, that's why. So make sure at the bottom, oh yeah, at the back, I forgot to mask that part. That's important. Now it should work a little bit better. Oops. Let's get out of the gizmo. Trying to maintain that sort of sharp line in there. Right? Cool. Let's clear that mask. Maybe redynamish slightly higher now. Smooth everything. And then we can sort of adjust things a little bit. But this is why I like to sort of block in the eyes quite early in the process. And I'm just going to use the clay brush to add a bit of volume here. So I'm still blocking things, thinking about the primary and secondary forms, but I can sort of start thinking a bit more about not the details, but it's kind of like a second pass of the secondary forms, and this is just to help me visualize this kind of like the expression at this point a little bit more, even though it's still quite far from the actual finish line. All right, so I'm going to show you the little trick for the mouth bag because it's quite handy, and then we can sort of keep refining this, and we'll merge all those things together. Do a quick sculpting pass just to refine the volumes, obviously a lot more. Then zero mesher, poly paint, fiber mesh. So I reckon, yeah, we have time to do that. Let me just check the chat. Hey, Pablo, is it enough for ZBrush Fabric? Can you recommend another software, another program? You mean like working with like cloth and like clothes and stuff like that, like fabric within ZBrush? Is that the question? Not sure if that's the question. So yeah, for the mouth bag, I'm gonna go into solo mode. This alien looks funny. I'm gonna hold the control key, and I'm just gonna hang on with the mask pen. Sorry. So hold control and mask this area. All right. And what I'll do is I'm gonna bring in the gizmo, maybe turn off symmetry, reset the rotation, and center it to that on mask area, and I can just push that in, right? So that's step one. It's kind of like creating that hole in the mouth. Now, if I right now I don't have double enable. That's for you guys should be display properties, right? To see the double faced a single-sided mesh view the two sides of it. So basically it has to do with the normals of the polygon. So right now, if I flip the normals, because I don't have double enable, you can sort of see inside of the model. And if I enable double, I have flipped the normals, which might not be ideal for this, but then cannot see inside. So the point is to flip the normals but have double off so that you can see inside. And if you rotate around, you'll be able to see that easier. And I can just scale this like so, and maybe even use the move brush with smooth things out a bit, right? And let's redynamesh. If I redynamesh, I'll have to flip it again, but dynamesh, because dynamesh basically closes the hole or fixes that problem with the normals. But now I have enough geometry here to smooth all of these inside. Right? Looks pretty funny, but let's flip the normals again. And if you want, you can keep refining this mouth bag from this angle, which is a lot easier. And I'm also going to use the inflate brush. If you want to have a precise shape for this inflate, sorry, not inflate, this mouth bag, you can also use a Boolean shape and then just add that. In this case, I think this one is fine. I probably won't even have the mouth open or anything, but just for the refining, it's going to be a lot easier. All right, so I'm going to redynamesh, which is going to flip that automatically, and now I have that. So now that I have this at this stage, with this resolution, I can start refining things a little bit more in terms of the primary secondary shapes before I redynamesh, before I remesh the whole thing, including the other bits and pieces that I have. So let's take that nose and let's obviously add a little bit more of a gap here. So maybe smaller actually. If you dynamesh, will fuse the mouth back. Not at this point, because there's quite a bit of I have already dynamesh. It's just a matter of having enough resolution to deal with that operation, but it should be okay. If it merges everything, just increase the resolution. That's about it. Okay, I'm gonna move this down and forward a bit, but keep it like so. At this point, really, just be careful with, if you get it too close when you do dynamesh, this is going to merge together. But if you take the move topological brush, for instance, and then move the lips down, you'll see sort of like respects the topology a little bit better. But in this case, now that I move them really close, if I redynamesh, those things are potentially getting merged together. So that's why I want to pull these down, but I want to make sure that it's not so close to the bottom lip. And I'm just going to use the damp standard brush to define some lips here. Very thin ones. There's a lot of damp standard brush, move, and smoothing as I go. All right, this is looking it's looking funny, but it's all right. This is I'm thinking kind of like a little bit ahead of myself, and I know that this might not sound or look like it's looking good, but all I'm doing is setting it up so that when I redynamesh, or sorry, I do the serum mesher, it sort of like gives me a nice topology. Then I can start refining and work with the the expression and everything a little bit more. So I think it's fine. So I'm gonna take my clay builder brush. It's just a custom clay builder brush that has some simple settings. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and merge everything together. So let's go ahead and create a folder. Let's call it OR for originals. Let's drop that in there, except the eyes. Actually, the eyes won't be part of that. And let's merge folder, right? So merging folder allows us to create a new tool, but it saves all the originals as well. So this new tool has all those pieces, but they're all separate still. Now this is a really cool feature in ZBrush, which is I'm not gonna use it, I think, but just so you know, which is the groups here in the Dynamesh options. So if you enable groups, when you redynamesh, ZBrush is going to keep those groups based on the different sort of meshes that you combine together. So just to give you an example, if I do the normal dynamesh, right, everything is merged. All of this is merged, and now this is a single object, which is what I'm going to use to, to fuse those things. If I undo that and enable groups and redynamesh, you still have the groups. So you can potentially just, this was the same group. Yeah, I think this was the same group. All right, but the nose wasn't, right? So even though this is a dynamesh and you can just work with these two things together, right? So you can blend it together. There are still groups, so you can isolate them like that. So it's quite handy in some cases. But for me, I think just to block it out a little bit, I'm gonna leave it out and maybe increase the resolution a tiny bit. Redynamesh that. Make sure symmetry is on. I think more than that. I'm gonna need more resolution just to define some areas. Okay. So now I'm going to use the smooth brush. We can also actually, let's go to the brushes, and we can bring in this strong smooth, or smooth stronger. This one right here. That one comes with ZBrush, so you can just load it up from the brushes, the brush folder inside ZBrush, and this allows you to smooth things a lot faster, like high resolution meshes like this. So I'm smoothing everything out again. And now I can start playing around with the volumes a little bit more. But now that I have the blocking, this part of the refinement process of the volumes, I usually spend quite a bit of time in this, just making sure that everything kind of like works. So I'm going to rush through this process a little bit, but this is done. So I would, if you follow along, I would suggest you spend the most amount of time here, just making sure that the volumes and the transition between the volumes are working. All right. It doesn't have to be perfect right now, because again, once we do the series measure, that's what basically we're going to be doing. We're going to refine this, but with a nicer topology. It's not I'm not going to series measure just to have a, I don't know, an animation ready character or anything like that. It's just purely so that we can have a nicer topology to refine and to detail. William Dafoe, yeah, it's a good reference for this. Right. I'm going to quickly define the ear. Nothing fancy again. Trying to keep it, within the cartoonish sort of world. Again, as long as we have the main sort of volumes blocked out, the next stage when we redynamesh, when we do the series measure, I keep saying redynamesh, but when we do the series measure, we will be able to sort out the volumes a bit more. All right, so I'm just gonna mask these areas of the eyes a little bit, so that I can sort of tweak the side view, because it's a little bit too, you know, it's working kind of like fine from the front view, but not necessarily from the side view. So I want to be able to have a nice volume from obviously every angle. It's a 3D object, but I do like the position of the eyes. We can also do something similar with this area of the face. Just to bring this cheek forward. All right, we're getting closer. Again, this would hopefully look a little bit better once we do the series measure. Cool, so we're gonna do a series measure just to clean up the geometry. Again, it's not gonna be perfect geometry, it's just something so that we can work with something a little bit better. So it's probably not gonna have any perfect loops or anything like that. Just cleaner, and then we can refine it a lot more. So all I'm going to do now, before I do the series measure, is take the damp standard brush and go ahead and sharpen some of these lines. And what that's going to allow me to do, or at least automate a little bit, is the placement of loops as well. So again, it's not necessarily a sculpting thing. What I just did there is purely to help ZBrush and to indicate where I want to hopefully get you know, a nice loop or a nice edge loop there. Same thing goes for all of these crevices. Let me refine the eyelids a little bit, or the position of it, make them a bit more rounded. And do the same thing just to indicate that I want a sharp loop, hopefully there. And here as well. Like I said, it's not going to follow this thing, you know, perfectly fine, but it probably would work a little bit better since we have this. And maybe the same thing here. Again, it's not refining the sculpt. This is just exaggerating certain features or certain areas that I want to make sure that the series measure sort of tackles better? So in a way, we've been just blocking things, but at the same time preparing this for the serial measure really. So it's a mix between sculpting and preparing it for, you know, for future sculpting, if you will. So I have this thing here that I want to duplicate. So I have the original and a duplicate of that, and I'm going to take this one, and it's going to be a quick serial measure based on whatever settings I have by default. And I usually do that just to see what I get, obviously with Symmetry activated. Let's go into solo mode. So I'm going to use half and leave the adapt on. So half is not obviously default, but I'm just going to leave it half. You can also set a specific size or polygon count, but I like to go halves and see how the serial measure progresses, right? I'm also going to give it a single polygroup. Let's do that. And the reason I duplicated is not only to work on obviously another mesh in case that it doesn't work, but also because then I can project the sort of the volumes that we've been sketching out in the other one into this one. Usually, this is one method, right? The other approach that I take is I work in Dynamesh all the way through, you know, almost getting into details, you know, making sure that all the primary and secondary forms are really well refined, and then remesh the whole thing and project the details. So in this case, I'm going to do the same thing, but we don't have details so far. I'm just going to project the shapes and the volumes. All right, so, you know, something decent. Let's go ahead and remesh again, and we're gonna keep doing this until we have a very low res mesh, but hopefully trying to keep with some edge loops in areas that that work fine. If this doesn't work, I usually go through this process, right? So we started to lose definition here, and these loops don't really work. The nose is fine, the mouth is kind of okay, but the eyes are not anymore. So I'm gonna do it one more time. But now at this point is what I realize, okay, I need to indicate or tell ZBrush what I wanna do with this serial measure, or how I wanna make sure that the loops are placed. So we can do that with guides, or we can do that with polygroups. There's plenty ways of doing this. I'm going to show you a couple. So see, I've already lost that sharpness of the eyes, and the eyes are quite important in this case. So let's undo that. Go back to the Dynamesh, and we can go ahead and group some things to make sure that we have those loops that we want. So let's get out of perspective. I'm going to use the select lasso, and I'm going to start by holding Control and Shift at the same time. Oops, and drag. Just making sure I cover that area. Just invert the selection. I'm going to also enable double so that I can see both sides. So obviously this one is not part of it. And also I'm going to enable polyframe without the line, so you can see the fill, and hold Control and W a couple of times. All right, so now I have this separate polygroup. I'm going to do the same thing here. So hold Control and Shift and define that loop. Invert that selection, maybe add a little bit more to it. Don't worry about the back facing. I'll just fix that in a second. So invert the selection. Oops, hold Control and Shift and drag. And I'm going to hide this one. So Control and Shift, oops, Control Shift to drag that, and then hold the Alt key to invert that. And I do have another polygroup, so the easiest way is just to use the select rectangular shape, click on that one, and now I hit that, and now this is going to be another polygroup, right? So now the idea is that if we use the polygroups, ZBrush is going to try to follow. It might not be perfect, but it try to follows the difference between the polygroups. And I can do the same thing for the mouth. The rest was working all right, so I'm just trying to give it a little bit of extra help. I have issues with the pressure in my pen. Hold hold the Alt key to hide that. All right, I'm gonna invert that selection, hide everything else. So it's not complete. Ah, hang on, my tablet is gone once again. All right, give me 1 second. I'm gonna reset things because this is starting to get to that point that after an hour, it's usually in the hour mark that things start to go wrong with the tablet. All right, give me 1 second and I'll be back. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. Let's so where were we? All right, so we have this mouth back, but it's not complete, right? So what I like to do is, let's say, give it a polygroup right now. Obviously, it's not complete. Then select the other polygroup that it is, the rest of it, and obviously it is not connected, but it's kind of like hard to go in and select that area. So because it is not connected, so essentially, let me just show you. What I try to do is to make sure that there is a loop around the lips. So you see all of this area around here is separating from the rest of the face, right? So essentially what I have is a loop, right? But everything, even though it is just a narrow, tiny area, it is separated from the rest of the mesh. So that allows me to, let's say, select this other mesh, right, with the hard part to select, and I go ahead and do an auto group. So auto groups is in the polygroups, auto groups, right? And auto groups means that ZBrush is going to assign a different polygroup to any like random piece that is not connected. So because these two pieces are not connected anymore, since I sort of created that loop, then I could select it and then combine it. So essentially, create a loop first, do auto groups so that we can split this easier, and then I can just go ahead and select this one and this one, embed the selection, and now we have the whole, the whole mouth bag that I can hold Control and W and assign a single one, a single polygroup, right? So that's pretty much it, really. And I think we should be good in terms of the polygroups. Yeah, I think the rest is fine. All right, so go back to what we're doing before, which is zero measure. Let's go to geometry, zero measure. Now the difference is, maybe let's, instead of using half, let's try a poly count of, and this is in the thousands. So let's try something like 50,000 just to see what that gives us. And we're also going to use the keep groups. This is the key one for this workflow in terms of defining the polygroups. Just keep groups. And the smoothing groups, basically what that's going to do, if I get closer, it's going to, you see that it's kind of like jagged edges all around. This process will smooth the difference between the polygroups before it runs the series measure. So I leave it at 1 in this case. As a rule of thumb, if you're doing a Dynamesh, so if you're moving from Dynamesh to series measure with polygroups, leave the smooth groups at 1. If it is something that is already clean and it has a very clean, difference between polygroups, like if this was a continuous loop, then you don't need it. But in this case, is useful. All right, let's zero mesh that, see what we get. In the meantime, let me see chat. Why not polypaint the mouth island and polygroup the polypaint? Yes, Alex. So yeah, that's one of the techniques in the extra mile, obviously. You can totally do that. This one is just a quick and easy way to do it, but you can do the polypaint and also the using the polypaint to, or polygroup it, right? Which is here, polygroup it. Right, so yeah, you can totally paint just the line around and then split it like that. This is just another technique, whatever works. But now you'll see that we have a clean set of edge loops around these areas that we need to, and we can go ahead and smooth things out a little bit, just to help the zero measure. Let's go to move brush. So there's something weird going on here, but it's all right. We can do another zero measure. All I'm doing is just smoothing some areas. Especially here around the eye. This is kind of like the problematic one. Hopefully the next one would sort it out. We'll see. All right, so now instead of target, I'm just gonna click on half, and let's turn off polygroups to 0, because now we have this clean set of loops. See what we get. I'm not sure if maybe I should have left the smooth groups on for the eyelids. Let's see. All right, not too bad. So that has been fixed. And I reckon we can do one more. Let's do zero measure. All right. Not bad. Not bad at all. So that works. Like I said, it's not perfect. This for animation wouldn't necessarily work, but what we want is to have a cleaner topology, project the volumes that we've been working on, and continue the refinement and sculpting with with subdivision approach, not Dynamesh. Right, just a quick smoothing of some areas just to make sure everything is nice and well distributed. And we can go ahead and move on. All right, so again, not a perfect topology, but it is a good working topology to continue. Cool, so now let's go ahead and enable the original. Let's get out of solo mode. And what I like to do is project everything to this low resolution. So I can click on project all. I'm gonna ignore the color. So project all, that for you should be under the project sub palette here, under the subtool. So the project section of the sub palette, the subtool sub palette. So I just turn off color and I just want to project that, and I want to check. Sometimes, depending on how, if it is a very small, very low resolution mesh, and you're projecting something like this, you'll get these issues. You see, because it's like quite far from the original. So I'll show you project. So I think it's working fine everywhere except the ears. So you can do two things. You can fix this manually or try to change the distance. I usually don't change the distance because that, if everything else is working, that might sort of change things in other areas, but just in case, let's do, so the original was 0.02. So 0.04, let's do project all, and that sort of fixes that, because it's, this distance essentially what it's doing is looking at a larger range. If this was, so let's say for this area, for the ear, right? So this is the original, and when we did the Dynamesh, sorry, the Symmetry measure, things changed quite a bit. So let's say that's the problem that is finding. So this one is the new one, right? So this distance, what it's doing is looking at the difference between the original that we're projecting. Sorry, the difference between the original, the new one that we're projecting. Sorry, let's back up. So it's looking at the difference between the original, that is the Dynamesh that we're projecting, into the new mesh, right? So because the distance is 0.02, let's say this is the equivalent to 0.02, right? So meaning everything in this area is fine. All of this is good. But it gets to this point, and that distance, 0.2, doesn't cover that little gap. So ZBrush is going, okay, this is good. Ignore this bit because I don't see anything in there. There's no enough distance, or the distance is covering that area that has nothing. And then if I change this to 0.04, essentially increasing that distance to maybe something like that, right? Now, when ZBrush does the projection, it says, okay, there's things in here. Let's finish it up. The reason I don't usually change this as much is because in thin areas, like if you have, let's say if your original, if the original is something like this, right? And then the one that you see remeshed is something like that, right? And this is 0.02 in distance, which is fine. And you have some issues, maybe this is not doing anything around here, it's creating those artifacts, and you decide to increase this quite a bit to 1. So from 0.02 or to, I don't know, 0.5 or something, 0.1. 0.1 is quite a bit, meaning that you have a lot of range to find that projection and get those details, but if you look at this distance, then it will just go over the other side. And from this area, it's going to go to the other side. So you're going to get a mess because it's going to project and intersect a bunch of stuff. So be careful with that. Hopefully that makes sense. But now we can have a look at, yeah, everything is kind of working. And now I can just go ahead and divide the new one. So the one that we zero mesh, we can subdivide it and do another project. Do a quick check that everything is working fine. Smooth these areas. So I like to check as I go, just to make sure that I don't have any weird artifacts. Let's do the same thing. Divide one more time, project all. And now we have 300,000 polygons. I'm gonna do one more time. So we have 1 million, almost the same amount of polygons that I had with the Dynamesh. If I'm not mistaken, let me just check. Yeah, so Dynamesh has 1.2 million. The zero measure now has 1.274 million. So pretty close. So let's do one more project. This one will take a little bit longer. Cool. Alrighty. So in the chat, how to create a topology for animation? Oh, that's a whole new topic in itself. Essentially, the basis or the idea behind topology for animation is to be able to move the polygon and distort the geometry as you animate, but keeping a good relation between the proportions of the faces and the polygons, or where the points are located. So you need a certain loops that, for example, when the character blinks, those loops can be close and maintain the volumes quite nice. So it's a whole new topic. We probably won't have time to discuss that, but yeah, it's just about finding the good balance between what the polygons would showcase in terms of the volume. So what are if you can maintain the volumes with the lowest amount of polygons, for example, but at the same time that they're arranged in a way that when you move them and when you distort them, they're not basically they're gonna follow the movement of the characters. So there's certain things like there should be like this around the chest and the shoulders. There should be like a continuous edge loop, so that when the character move the arm up, then the shoulder doesn't get distorted, for example. So there's a bunch of things. Anyway, we don't have time for that. What is C-cut? Not sure what you mean. C-cut. Is it a script? C plugin? Haven't heard of C-cut. All right, but I have projected everything, so now I can go into, maybe let's get out of solo and turn off the original. So you'll see this is pretty much the same thing as we had before. We even had the projection of all these sort of bumpy areas. So, oops, there is something going on here. This is what I should have checked everywhere before. So this polygon missing, that's not good. All right, so I should have checked that. Anyway, let's just do this. Let's just delete higher, and I'm gonna use the C modeler. It's very briefly to right click here, go to bridge, edges. I have to create a triangle. Yeah, this one is a little bit weird, but it's alright. We won't be able to see it anyway. Just found out. Let me just check the inside as well. That's why it's good to to check everywhere. Alright, so I'm just gonna mirror this and then mirror and weld it, so that we have that closed. And just for the sake of being consistent, I'm gonna give it a polygroup. All right, that's just a quick fix. So all it means is that we have to project everything again, but it should be pretty straightforward. or not. Right, so that's not good. Don't know what happened there. Everything is fine. Okay. Don't know what happened there before, but it's fine. Okay, so let's do one more. Project all. And a good sort of way to tell that the projection of something is working is the more of this noise that you see, like let's say around this area, the more noise that you see, the better. That means that the things are actually getting closer to each other. The fact that you see like larger pieces of color in this case, because I have the polygroup enabled, that means that these areas are not necessarily close to each other. So you can do another project, but I think it's fine. See, there's little bits and pieces like here that for some reason are not working. Okay, I think that was it. Hopefully there's no like issues that I didn't see before. Cool. All right, so now we have that piece. We're just gonna do a quick pass, sort of like arranging or tweaking this new mesh. I should do it in the low resolution actually. It's a lot easier. That's the whole point of doing the redynamesh anyway, or the remesh. So this is just like little tweaks with the move brush, nothing fancy here. But now we can sort of start working on some other areas. So I'm gonna take this one in the lowest resolution, solo, right? And I'm gonna use the lasso. So the lasso allows me to select loops of these polygons. So if I hold the Control and Shift and click on an edge, it's gonna create, it's gonna hide that loop. So for example, if I hold Control and Shift and click on this edge, it's gonna hide this entire poly loop. So I'm gonna do that. You'll see it just goes all around, and this is pretty much the idea of, or the reason why I wanted to do also a simple topology. So it's just creating this weird loop because again it's not perfect, but this is all I want. So I want to do another one here and another one there. Cool. So the reason I'm doing this is because I can go ahead and do auto groups, right? And it will give me this polygroup so that I can manipulate the jaw independently or select it independently. So let's go ahead and bring back everything, and I'm going to hide. Whoops, go back to select rectangular, hide the jaw, hide the mouth back, hide the eyes, and hide. Oh no, that's it. And I can just polygroup this again. Cool. So basically now I have this jaw, this group that I can basically select, isolate, and work on this area, and vice versa. I'm gonna do the same thing for the mouth back actually, just because it's gonna be easier. So hold Control and Shift, isolate that. Let's do it again. It's gonna be easy like this. All right, so select rectangular. No, hang on. I need to actually check which one I'm hiding. Yeah, this one. So let's do that, and let's go ahead and hide the rest. Same idea. Auto group, and then I can just combine that. All right, so basically now I have the jaw and half of the mouth back that I can give it a polygroup. So this process, sometimes if I just do it too quickly, it's like, what are you doing? But basically, using the select rectangular to isolate loops, and then the auto groups that sort of looks at the topology, and whatever is not connected is going to give it a different polygroup, allows you to just quickly fine tune these the polygroups. So I'm going to move a little bit faster because we have like 40 minutes left, and I wanted to do polypaint and fiber mesh and all of that. So but now that I have this, we're pretty close to the setup is kind of like the complicated part really. Okay, so I can go ahead and bring in my move topological that respects topology, and even though maybe with the brush a little bit smaller, even though it is not continuous, the topology here is not continuous, I can do this. But at the moment, because I did this setup, it's going to be easier if I just take my move brush, right? And I isolate this, mask it, go back, and then do this, right? Let's embed the selection, and I'm going to push. Right, so I can clear the mask, and now I have, a nice close mouth that when I go into the high resolution, it's gonna look fine. These artifacts here are just from the projection, but not a big deal. All right, cool. So now I can literally start like sculpting and working on the volumes a little bit better. Maybe using the clay brush. So doing this for the chin and smoothing things as I go. But now here's where I can start to sort of think a bit more about the expression as I refine these volumes. Hey David, I wanted to say hi. Hey, oh no worries, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. By the way, guys, before I forget, if in case you're not in the email list in my newsletter where I send the weekly tips and all of that, or if you are, but maybe you have missed it or you haven't checked it, the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course, the one that is for absolute beginners, covering everything from scratch, is opening tomorrow actually. So I'm pretty excited about that. So if you're interested in kind of like learning ZBrush or sort of want to get a better idea of how tools work from the ground up, that course might help you. So just go to your email, and if you're not, again, just join. I will put it in social media as well. But yeah, so that's gonna be opening tomorrow. So if you're looking into learning a little bit more of ZBrush, that might help. I'll show you in a second what I'm talking about in case you don't know. It's kind of like my second biggest course after the extra mile. But this one, the difference is that the UCG, or the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course, is for absolute beginners. So you don't need to have any prior knowledge of ZBrush. I cover absolutely everything, and also it's 100% focused on ZBrush. So I don't deal with anything else. I'll show you how to create everything from scratch. We'll create a character and everything, but everything sort of following a systematic approach that, you know, it's easy to follow. So as you create the character, I sort of cover different features in ZBrush and how to use them, and obviously different workflows with every feature. All right, so all I'm doing here is just refining a little bit of the work that I've done before with the sketch. But because I already have a nice topology, or, you know, I would call it a nice topology, a working topology, nice working topology, it allows me to smooth things out quite easily. And also, when I smooth it, it doesn't create that many or that weird artifacts that you usually get when you try to smooth a Dynamesh object. Right? It's getting there. There's some like bumpy areas still, but that's part of the process as well. I'm gonna bring in the smooth stronger as well. And I'm gonna have to rush through this process a little bit because I do want to have something better than this by the end, just to show you the full thing. But so the smooth stronger allows me to smooth all of these bumps a lot faster. All right. Hang on, let me just check the chat. I'm planning to print Oscar. I'm planning on printing a model using the project way. It's enough for the print. Sorry, I'm not understand 100% the question. 3D printing an object. So what's the question? I don't see the relation between projecting and 3D printing. Sorry. Helped out on UCG course is really good. What field of view do I use? The default one. Don't usually change that unless I'm doing something like try to do likeness or something like that. Cool. All right, so I'm just gonna refine the eyelids, and I'm gonna bring in my mask lasso, and I'm gonna mask something like that. Actually, invert that, and I'm gonna smooth this quite a bit, and then use my move brush. In this case, I'm gonna turn the AccuCurve off, and just move this over the, and maybe mask this as well. And move this over the eyelid. So that obviously gives it a better expression. Like a grumpy one. I think that works. And of course, we can keep refining the volumes. But hopefully you see that the whole idea of that sort of working topology, it just makes this whole process a lot easier to sculpt with these subdivision levels, because as you, let's say, as I do this with the clay brush, then the smoothing happens, and it just feels a lot more natural and feels better. You have more control definitely if you have, you know, subdivision levels than if you have Dynamesh. Alrighty, so I think we are getting there. I wanted to refine this a little bit more. Let's see what are we doing with the time. I reckon we can do a quick poly paint pass and do the fiber mesh, because this one, you know, definitely needs the hair to to complete the effect, right? I'm just thinking maybe add a little bit of a chin here, or an indication of double chin. And I'm going to use the damp standard brush with the Alt key just to sharpen these lips a little bit more. Just the top ones, the top lip. And if you find some of the surface still a little bit too bumpy, a really cool brush that you can use is the polish brush. So I'm gonna filter by the letter P. So the polish, this polish brush. And I just go in like sort of like circular motions, and it sort of smooths at the same time that it polishes the surface. That's really good. Not much anyway, so that kind of like works. All right, so I'm gonna add some tiny little wrinkles and details, maybe using the damp sander brush. Not much. Again, I want to keep it simple. You can also go in subdivision level to smooth the bumps anyway. You can, yes. The problem with that, well, not the problem, but the only downfall of that approach is that depending on the amount of details that you have, every time that you go back in subdivisions, you'll I mean, you have to almost smooth everything in every single subdivision level, basically, which is fine, but you know. All right, so just for those details that I'm gonna be adding, just trying to get the expression in the eyes right. I think having the pupils will help, so let's just do that very quickly. I'm gonna toggle perspective off, turn symmetry off. I'm gonna remove or delete one of these spheres, and I'm gonna use a light yellow color, fill the object, and then I'm also going to subdivide it a bit. Actually, yeah, let's subdivide it and delete lower, doesn't really matter. And then we can use the standard brush and paint with the standard brush. So turning off ZAdd and enable RGB. And also let's work with symmetry, radial symmetry in the Z axis, but local symmetry. So now we can work directly on this thing. All right, so that's the pupil, well, the iris, which I'm gonna make it more like a green color to go with the theme. And I'm gonna use, without symmetry, actually, let's just fix this a little bit. Without symmetry, I'm just gonna add a darker desaturated green on top, just to fake that sort of concave shape of the iris, and then maybe a light, just a light yellow here. And we can go back to the symmetry, darker color. Let's go here. Maybe that's too evil at the moment. So when I'm something like this. Let's turn off symmetry, bring in the gizmo, and I'm gonna just play around with the eye position a little bit more, and also mirror and weld that. Oops, without the local symmetry. And now I think it works a little bit better. So now it has a better expression. Like this grumpy dude. So that allows me to just go back with the move brush, for example, and then just tweak the placement of the eyelids. All right. Cool. So let's go ahead and do a quick, let's just add some details. Although I don't think we need details. We can just do them with the, yeah, I'll do the details with them, with the poly paint, I think. Yeah, all right. Very quickly, see the chat. It's possible to customize navigation. I mean, holding the Alt. Yeah, there's a couple of ways to, not customize, but there's a couple of ways to navigate. But you can customize it, but I would strongly suggest to try to get used to it. The navigation in ZBrush is done this way for a reason. So the same thing goes with everything in ZBrush. There's ways to customize things, but if you get used to the way that ZBrush works, when you sort of learn the basics, you can just run with it and be very quick with it. Did I paint my NFT demons in ZBrush? No, I use Substance Painter. So let me just show you a couple of things before we finish, so that you know what the chat is talking about. So if you go to pablo.gallery, that's my online gallery. Let's just update that. So I just did this new demon. So that's the one that who did that? Abraham asked about. So all of these ones are painted in Substance Painter, but the sculpture and the details and everything is done with ZBrush, and also the details I use the custom brushes that I created for skin as well. But yeah, basically these are the ones that are currently in NFT. So this guy right here. But yeah, so if you're interested, you can just find me in there. But what I was going to show you is the ultimate ZBrush guide. So this one right here. So this one that is coming soon is actually coming really soon. It's coming tomorrow, actually. So we'll be opening enrollment for this one. And this is the one that I've been talking about. So this is the character that we worked in the whole course. But every single piece is being carefully designed, or every single asset and part of this character has been carefully designed to follow a certain workflow and explore through that workflow different tools. So we build things as you progress in the course, we build things like progressively, but covering absolutely all the basics to get to this point. So this is what you would get at the end if you follow the program basically. But as you progress and as you create this character, you will learn all the basics of ZBrush, and the idea is to have you super comfortable with it. And when I say all the basics, it doesn't mean that everything is basic. Like, it progressively builds on your skills as well. So yeah, you can just go ahead and check it out. There are, for the enrollment tomorrow when it opens, there's another module that is not here because I haven't published it yet. But there's a second bonus module 4 that has the recordings or the archive of 3 live lessons, and we're going to have 2 more live lessons that are dedicated to the new features in ZBrush 2021.6, and another one that I'm going to show you how to render what you come up with at the end, but in a separate software, like outside ZBrush, and go through the process of lighting it and rendering and finishing the image. So yeah, you'll see that it starts from the very basics. So the fundamentals covers everything from like what a pixel is, and like I said, understanding why ZBrush works the way it works, all the way to the final one, which is working with posing and rendering, and bonus module with fiber mesh, which is what I'm gonna do in the next 10 minutes today. So yeah, definitely go here, or just keep an eye on this website. Other than that, and there's a couple things coming. Also, this one. With CG Cup, I just had the randomizer, like a challenge here with these guys. That was really fun, different from what I do, but it was really cool. So it's coming up on April the 12th of April, if I'm not mistaken. Should be somewhere here. So I'll just put a link here in the chat because it's pretty cool. But anyway, I'll leave it there, and let's just wrap this one up. So I'm gonna use a skin shade to paint this guy. So I'm gonna start with a pale color like this, maybe more reddish tones for the ears. I'm going to change my stroke type and my alpha just to get something a bit more complex in terms of what the texture is. And I'm going to reduce the color variation in the stroke palette so that it doesn't vary the color as much. Yeah, the John Petchy leprechaun. That's probably what this is. Alright, so I'm gonna go for a reddish tone for the nose and kind of like the cheeks as well. Get some more desaturated dark colors here around the eyes. So this is a quick poly paint, but I really want to do the fiber mesh. So I reckon in the 10 minutes I might get something going. Maybe some darker oranges and color and red for the ears as well. And poly painting is really the same deal as sculpting in the sense that once you select a few colors just to establish the palette, like blocking the palette, the rest is quite easy. So I already have some colors here that I can just click and drag from the color palette and refine this. I'm gonna use a lighter color as well here for the head or for the forehead. And I'm going to change these back to the normal stroke, no alpha. Just going to darken these. So solo mode, remember we have polygroups. So I can take this, mask that, invert that mask. It's going over the top a little bit, but I can refine this easily. Maybe with the mask pen. Oops. And then I can click on the mask to blur it a little bit. We can also go to masking, click on view mask so that we don't see it, and we can actually see the color and how it, affecting the mesh. And maybe just a lighter red tone here. All right, clear the mask, and we are almost there. I'm going to use the cavity, mask by cavity, just to select certain areas that are like, these cavities. And then I'm going to blur the mask quite a bit, invert the selection, or invert the mask. And I'm going to use, again, a darker tone, fleshy tone like this. And just add a little bit of shadow here. Clear the mask. Maybe go with a desaturated red. All right, and maybe a bit of pink here for the lips. All right, so not bad. Let's go to the eyes again, and I'm just gonna add a bit of red color here towards the. No, that's purple. All right, these sort of reddish tones. And a bit of shadow as well. So a lot of what this sculpting is as well, this process is thinking about the the what's the name, the polypaint, but like the blocks of polypaint and the palette once you have set it up, because the color is actually and the texture is sort of helping the sculpture. I don't know if you know what I mean, but basically it's basically adding more details just with the texture. We don't need to do like any sculptural details or anything like that. All right, so let's do 5 minutes for fiber mesh. Let's do fiber mesh. So I'm gonna click on mask lasso. I'm gonna do the beard first. I like a pass on the beard, maybe from this angle. Right, I'm gonna go into solo mode just in case. Check that. I think that's fair enough. What I'll do is, I'm just thinking maybe I can split it into a couple of bits and pieces. So I'm gonna do the main one. So I'm gonna blur the mask a little bit, and I'm gonna go to fiber mesh. Click preview, and I'm going to change the base and the tip. Right, so those are the fibers. I'm going to reduce the hang on. So I think that in terms of fibers it's fine. I'm just going to do a quick BPR just to check. And BPR is quite important when you're working with fiber mesh, just to check that everything works. So we probably need a little bit more than that. I think it would be fine. Yeah. All right. So by changing the mask and the area, we change the way that this is distributed. So I can reduce the area a little bit, or increase it actually. No, reduce it. Yeah, there we go. So I reduce the area. So ZBrush basically is using more of the mask that I define rather than the area. The area has to do with the area of the polygon. So if you have, because we have a nicely distributed topology, we have a pretty consistent area. If you have a polygon that is really big next to something that is very small, then that area would affect a lot more the way that this is created. I'm gonna add a bit more length, or maybe actually, I think the length is fine. I think everything is fine. I'm just gonna add a few segments just so that we can manipulate the beard a little bit better. And I'm gonna remove the twist, because all the twists and all of these settings will get overridden once I start grooming the beard. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna click accept. And it's asking me if I want to activate fast preview. I'm going to say, let's just say yes. Go back to the head, and I'm going to invert the mask, right? Because I want to add a little bit more here. So I inverted the mask, and now I'm going to remove sort of these areas, holding, and then we can do something like this, holding Alt. This hopefully is going to make sense in just a second. So I basically inverted the mask, like you can see here, to get this additional piece. And this is going to be a second fiber mesh that I can blend. So I'm going to add more mask to it. So this one will be less fibers and thinner maybe, so that I can blend it a little bit better with the face. So blur that mask. So now I can click on preview, and you see it's just another set of fibers. Oops, I think I made a huge mistake. I had double enable, so that's creating double the amount of fibers, which is going to be a problem. So let me do, actually, I think we can still save this. I'm going to delete this fiber mesh. I'm gonna create it again. It's actually, that's very important to have the double disable. I'm gonna create preview. I'm gonna reduce the amount of fibers, something like that. Click accept. Yes. And now I'm gonna go back to this guy and go back in time a little bit until I had this ready. Preview. And we're back to where we started. Yeah, accept. Whoops, I almost did the same thing. Or I did it. Turn that off. One more time. Here we go, accept. Cool. Alrighty. Let's just do the hair. This hairline is really starting to look like John Pesci. It's funny. All right. No, I think I didn't create the other part of the beer. Oh, I don't know what I did then. All right, I'm gonna do this one. Let me go back in time one more time. Accept. Yes. Oh. Okay. I just need to pay attention to what I'm doing so I don't have to do it multiple times. If I go into this mode, I need to make sure this is not masked. Of course, we did that from the side, so makes sense. Alrighty. So, oh no, what? What am I doing? Okay, let's do it one more time. There we go. Hopefully, it's gonna work now. Okay, double off. All right, this is the last one. All right, good. Now it's working. All right, so I'm gonna toggle a few of these ones off. These ones, and I'm gonna start with these guys first. Cool. And I'm gonna use the standard brush. I'm actually gonna select an orangey color, very bright. Fill that object, and just by itself already, kind of like has a much better look. And I'm actually gonna use some of the brushes that I created for fiber mesh. If you're interested in these ones, by the way, they are in the ZBrush Guides website, so you can just get these ones over there. So I'm gonna use something like the shaper. So this brush allows me to, work with large amount of fiber mesh, but have a lot of control. So I'm gonna start pushing these ones down, and just, as the name suggests, it just shapes the hair. That's what it does, basically. right, kind of like this sort of shape already, but we can definitely change things a bit more. So I can use the lengthen, the sharp lengthen I have to this one, the normal lengthen, and just to increase again very gradually the length of the fibers. We can also do it a little bit more randomly. So if I bring in this one, the sharp one, I can do this type of things, which I think is quite cool to randomize things a little bit. Okay. Another one that is going to be pretty cool would be the waver. This one, the waver. So this allows you to add a little bit of randomness to the shape. All of these brushes are pretty straightforward, pretty self-explanatory in terms of what they do. Also, I'm gonna use the turbulence. Where is that one? Yeah, subtle turbulence. Alrighty, now let's go to the next one. Same color, fill object. In fact, before I fill with the object, let's just work with it like this, just so that we can see the difference and the blending a little bit better. So this fiber mesh is really just to blend the harsh fiber mesh that we created before with the rest of the face. That's pretty much all I wanted to do. Maybe add a bit of turbulence as well. Fill object. There we go. Kind of like it without it as well. All right, I'm just gonna do a quick BPR to see how this is, and we want to wrap it up because I'm already over time. All right, so not bad at all. That thing that works. I'm gonna do the hair as well, just to complete it. So same color. For this one, I'm gonna use a slightly different one. It's called the Benda, and that one is similar to the Shaper, but the difference is that it works better with long hair and large quantities. So it allows me to bend the shape quite a bit more. All right, same deal. I treat the fiber mesh as well as the, like I treat everything in terms of the process. So same thing, same deal with the poly paint. So I just try to work with the large brushes and block the entire thing, and then I can just refine it with, maybe add a little bit of a symmetry with this guy. Yeah, I can use another one that is pretty cool called the hang on, where is it? The sharp clumper, and this one allows you to create sharp clumps of hair like this very quickly. So I can do this fairly quick. Again, I'm rushing this process that usually takes longer, but I just want to show you the completed version of this guy, of the John Petty Leprechaun. Right, and there's another one. I'm gonna use the turbulence again, just to add a bit of randomness. Yeah, very subtle turbulence. But there's another one called the flyaways control. This will take individual pieces that you can use as well to, give it a bit more of a realistic effect. So not everything is going to be part of that clump. So yeah, you just push these things around. Like little flyaways. And the last thing I want to do, again, this is super rushing this process, but of course, I also want to make sure I have eyebrows, which I don't have right now. So I want to select the face, quick masking, have ZBrush Photoshop process, concept art, or null. I do prefer the whole process in ZBrush and then just exporting into a renderer and then compositing it somewhere else. All right, let's do these ones really quickly. Oops. Way too many. I'm gonna go for thicker eyebrows as well, so I'm gonna increase the coverage, reduce the length as well, remove the gravity, we don't need that. Let's accept that. Fill object. Oops. Yeah, fill object. Why is it not letting me fill this object? There's a mask, maybe? No, I have intensity set to 1. That's why. Cool. And again, bend. Let's add a little bit of turbulence. And let's use the maybe the flyway controller. Actually, let's use the lengthen sharp, and then let's just increase the length of some of these ones, so we can play around with that a little bit better. Once I take the flyaway controller, and maybe just the clumper as well. And then the rest could be just a little bit of shaper maybe different without symmetry. Again, I'm super rushing this. I spend a lot more time doing this, but you know, just to show you the process. Just one more. There is a brush called, and let's see where it is. The Fairlifter. So this one, when you get like things too closer to the surface and they're too flat, it just adds a little bit of a lift, just to separate things a bit, which is quite handy. Alrighty. So here is the John Pesci leprechaun type of thing. I'm gonna do a quick render. I'm gonna wrap it up here, guys. Yeah, definitely. So I could add some moles and some freckles as well. You know, some other details that would definitely help. But I think this works. There it is. There's this guy. Yeah, so I'm happy with this. Obviously, a lot more that need refinement, but for the most part, I think it looks all right. Yeah, 5 minute 5 mesh. Hola Miguel, saludos, saludos desde Colombia. Cool. All right, guys. So I just went over 15 minutes, so I better wrap it up right now. But hopefully this sort of help you in a way, and you know, we explore different features as well. So again, I'm gonna leave it here. Just to recap, guys. Tomorrow, for those who are new to ZBrush or are interested in ZBrush, the Ultimate ZBrush Guide course is opening for enrollment. Again, I'll put the link in the description of the video and the chat. I'm confused again. So you can just have a look at it, and if you think it's something that might be good for you, you know, feel free to ask me any questions if you have any. Tomorrow will be open, so you can check. You know, I will be adding a couple more things so that you know what this offering for this enrollment includes, like the additional bonus module. And if you join this in this time, you're gonna have access to the two new live sessions, like mini workshops that we do. And if you cannot attend to them, this is like a lifetime access as well. So once you're in for life. So anytime that I do an update, like I've been doing for these modules, you get those for free as well. Yeah, so it's a lifetime access. So if you don't have time to start right now, or if you don't have time to watch the live lessons or be part of the live workshops, you can still catch up with them later as the archive. So I will leave it there, and that's it. Also, one more thing, in case you're interested, this is a different one, and it's kind of like for more advanced or yeah, you can just click 3D snippets. I'm gonna show you the public page. So if you go to 3dsnippets.com, like literally 3dsnippets.com, this one is the same thing as what you can see here. And this is just a different side of things that I do. So 3D Snippets is I use Patreon as the platform, but I don't have tiers or anything. It's just a single, so like supporting monthly thing. So if you join, this is in Australian dollars, but if you join, you basically get access to a monthly project that I work through the month. So this month we're working in a kind of like a creature type of thing. And the idea is that every month we work on something something different, and you guys are the ones that drive the content. So towards the end of this month, I share like a poll, as in what you want to see in the next one, and we work from scratch, from everything from the very beginning all the way to, let's say, presentation and render. And I'm doing this as an experiment see how I go for a few reasons. I sort of like pushes me to create more personal artwork and portfolio, which is something that I need to do. And it also allows me to showcase or like put time in and showcase a bunch of other things that I don't usually have time to showcase, or I don't have the time to explain and show, which are after this series live stream, there might be a few other processes that I do to finalize the image, maybe UVs or whatever else I do. It doesn't matter what the process is, but I don't get a chance to show that. So this allows me to, or gives me the time to do it as well. So if you're interested, that is there. And at the end of every month, I create like this like mini guide where you can sort of have like a summary of everything as well, of everything that we've been doing that month, plus what I call a map, M-A-P, which is the monthly art pack. So everything that I developed during that month in terms of the resources comes to you as an art, like a pack. Like let's say if I'm creating a creature that uses horns and I develop a brush or a mesh to create horns, that will be part of that project. So at the end of the month, that's part of the map. Anyway, so just more things to, keep you motivated to do your own thing as well. And if you sort of like losing track of all the things that I've been working on, I also created a website just as a hub for you to sort of like have an idea of, of what I'm working on. So if you go to pablanda.com, just my handle, that one gives you access or gives you like a overarching view of every project that I'm currently involved with, and you sort of like understand how everything is sort of structured for myself. So the 3D concept artist, which is for like in-depth courses and specialized workshops. So the UCG that I show you, the extra mile, all of those things. The ZBrush guides are more like step-by-step guides and tutorials. The 3D snippets is what I just showed you before with the monthly projects, and the newsletter, which is essentially the ones that I send you every week, little tips and tricks and things like that. Which, by the way, this tip this week is really cool. I don't have it here, but I created a couple of macros that allow you to create and save masks with polypaint and in layers. Anyway, so yeah, all right. So I went way above my time, so hopefully I'm not eating up time on anyone else. I'm gonna leave it here, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm moving houses this coming weekend, so I'll try to have the whole setup ready for the next time. But if anything, I'll let you know. All right, thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Cheers.